I don't know where you come from, what you're capable of, your network, like putting all that aside, all else equal, just do it.
Every company wants AI, but most don't have the data to make it work. CRM, ERPs, spreadsheets are still disconnected. AI projects fail before the model ever matters. Palantir and Databricks solve this for billion-dollar companies. The mid-market is still waiting today. Ilan Man spent 20 years building data systems, including scaling Brooklyn Data Co. through its acquisition. Now he's building Paradox machines, backed by Infinity Constellation and AI Services Holdco, to bring that same infrastructure to companies priced out of the enterprise tier. So for everyone who hasn't met you yet, who are you and what is Paradox Machine? Let's welcome our guest today, Ian.
Thanks, Gina. Yeah, so I'm Ilan. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm building Paradox Machines. Paradox Machines is a full stack data and AI company. We embed a lean team directly into your business and deploy a managed data platform into your cloud. So companies get clean reporting, AI-enabled analytics without having to build an internal data team or manage a bunch of SaaS vendors. Outcomes-based pricing, no billable hours. And yeah, very excited about what we're building and excited to be here.
Yeah, so welcome. And so you spent 20 years in data before this, and you helped take a company through an exit. So you have the credibility, the network, and option to any role that you want. But instead, you started your own company and to be a first-time founder. Like, why did you choose this?
Yeah, it's very generous of you to think that I can have any job I want. But obviously, I'd like to think that. But yeah, I mean, so the short version is I've never started a company before, and I thought it'd be super cool to do one. And when I left Brooklyn Data, I was consulting, and I was doing data and AI consulting, and it was a very exciting time, obviously, kind of in the last 12 to 18 months. And it seemed like just the right moment to start a data and AI company. In particular, I noticed that there's a lot of folks doing AI work, which is super cool. Not that many of them, I think, are kind of data experts necessarily. So I thought that there was an opportunity for me to kind of separate myself and, to differentiate myself in that space. So that's kind of why I decided to do that. I would say reason two is, and this is a conversation I have with a lot of data leaders. It's I think for data leaders, there's kind of the ceiling on what you're going to do next. And I talked to a lot of VPs, directors, heads of data. They've been doing the same thing for the last decade, and they're wondering what's next. Do I take the next VP role, SVP role? It's kind of rinse and repeat a lot of the times. I think things are changing with AI as organizations are shifting their focus around data and its value proposition in the age of AI. So I think that narrative is changing, but let's say the last 10 years, that's kind of what it's been. So between that, starting a company, and then meeting Infinity, the stars kind of aligned, and I was like, let's do this.
Was it planned through all these things, or it was just by flow?
What was it planned to kind of meet?
Like after the exit, like did you plan to?
No, not at all. So we got acquired, and that was a very interesting experience. I personally learned a ton around acquisitions and integrating two different organizations and trying to manage all of that. So that was actually I think a really great experience for me. But after a period of time, all things kind of come to an end, and I realized that what I needed was something different. So I left to do consulting, but by which I mean I didn't have anything lined up. So I kind of had to figure it out. And so yeah, it was definitely not planned.
Oh, that's very interesting. And so you spent 20 years helping companies make better decisions. Looking back, what is something that you were convinced created enterprise value in a data perspective?
Oh, that's so interesting. I'm kind of a bit of a contrarian where I think, it's really hard to eke out value out of your data despite doing it. It's not to say it's impossible. It's just to say it's so much harder than advertised. Um, I think there's enterprise value when organizations, I mean, this sounds trivial, but when they don't always move based on gut feel. And why I say that is most of them do move based on gut feel, basically vibes. And that's like not obviously bad, but I think there's so much low hanging fruit to using analytics, using data, trying to make your decisions, X% smarter than they otherwise would have been. Not everybody needs to build a Netflix recommendation engine or Amazon's or some of these, larger organizations in which data is at their core and actually drive their product. Most companies don't do that. And they don't need to necessarily do that. They have to, kind of provide like great experiences and marginally improve their business. And I think that's where data can really play a big role. So that's kind of where I see there being real enterprise value.
So 30 years before and now with AI and everything, do you think enterprise value change?
Well, so it's interesting. I don't think the story of AI has been written, right? We're writing it. So it's hard to say, oh, those companies that are building their data for AI use cases, I mean, I genuinely believe they're going to win. But I can't point to examples to say, here's a company who did it well. Maybe they're doing it well, but they've been doing it well for what, a year or two? I'm much more interested in building durable businesses and providing like long-term value. AI's in this kind of formulation has been around for what, 3.5 years. Like it's still super early. So it's hard to know kind of who the winners are going to be today, but that shouldn't stop you. So you have to make your bets, and my bets are, with those companies that are using data to drive their AI use cases, their automations, their efficiencies, their product experiences, identifying additional revenue streams. Like there's so much opportunity to take advantage of AI. I just don't think that we know necessarily what the best companies are doing because it hasn't been around long enough.
Yeah, exactly. And through the exit that you help with Brooklyn Data Co, like what data is actually the most important that help with the exit and acquisition?
So that's interesting. So the data that helped with the exit and the exit. So whenever you're acquiring or you're exiting a company, there's two things you got to do kind of at the same time. The math has to math, and the story has to be very compelling, right? So the data had to, and we had kind of bankers and other folks involved in the data room and cleaning the data and doing all this stuff, which is a whole other very interesting conversation to have around kind of, non-data folks managing data, which is totally fine and kind of part of their job. But there's kind of getting the data into a form and a shape so that the buyers can do their diligence, ask their questions, do their own forecasting. And then there's the story aspect around, what was our trajectory? What is the market dynamics? What are we doing to differentiate ourselves? How are we diversifying our client portfolio and our people and all the rest of it? So, honestly, that was something that our founder had done, 99% of the work for. So I'm going to take zero credit on that part of the analysis. I was there for the journey and certainly part of the management presentations and kind of like the storytelling aspect of it. But that's kind of, it was a really interesting experience.
So like a data room is really important. And would you tell companies, especially startups, that they must create and prepare a data room the moment they start the company? So it's easier to continue tracking because most people don't really do it when they just start. It's messy.
Yeah. I don't think you have to do it from day one because the company's going to change so much over time. I do think it's going to be very helpful for those, especially founder-owned businesses, but even kind of acquired companies that are looking to exit, to get started on your data room sooner rather than later. So you can imagine that, if you're looking to sell your company, get acquired, and the traditional formula is, okay, you go hire kind of maybe a quality of earnings firm, investment bank. They do the diligence, the data room. They get the data kind of ready for an acquirer a few months, 3, 4, 5 months before an acquisition. The acquirer takes a look at your data. They have a bunch of questions around distribution and margins and product lines and all the rest of it. And then you answer the questions. If the answers are compelling, if you can tell a good story, maybe they'll pay a high multiple for your business. Great. The problem with that is that it's very reactive. If they identify areas of concern, you have to kind of dance around that. You can't do anything about it. It's too late. You're going to sell in 3 or 4 months. Now imagine, I think kind of the spirit of your question, imagine doing that not 3 months before exit, but 3 years before exit. Now, if your business has just started, okay, it's too soon. You don't know the shape of everything. But if you have like a semi-mature business and you kind of have an interesting shape of the data of the business, if you get started a few years before acquisition and you can kind of battle test, like red team your data and your business model, the questions that acquirers ask are kind of the same. Honestly, you can ask Claude, give me the top 30 questions that an acquirer is going to ask of my business. Here's all the context. It's going to give you really good questions. That's your roadmap. Now you have a roadmap to say, okay, you have a distribution risk over here. Your sales are really weak over there. You don't have enough diversity in your product lines. So you have all of these, you basically have a roadmap such that you can then take the next couple of years to shore up your business and your data and all the rest of it. So when you do go to the market, they'll ask you those same questions, but you're going to have, first of all, hopefully better answers, but like maybe you've done something about it, and then your multiple is going to be higher. So the ROI on that investment, that's a real multiple expansion opportunity. And that used to be a very expensive proposition to hire these firms to do this analysis for you, which is why you don't do it until you're ready to sell. Because if they did it for you, then you have to redo it every, few months. Yeah. But now with data, with pipelines, with AI, with modern technology, you can do it once, 3 years in advance, and then just keep updating your data sets, on demand every day, seeing how the distributions shift and all the rest of it. And it's just so much more affordable now than it ever was. So I don't know if that helps answer your question, but so in short, I don't think you have to do it from day one, but I don't think that you should follow the traditional model of doing it right before you are ready to sell.
Yeah, it's definitely useful to have it, but not prepared last minute. That's what it means.
Yeah. Well, and in particular because it's cheaper now. Like you used to, if you only, if you have to pay a QV firm $250K, 500K, like you're not going to do that more than once. Like that's a lot of money. You're going to do it when you're ready. But if it's a quarter of the price, then maybe you do it a couple of times. So anyway, yeah, I think the cost curve has come down. This is kind of the thesis of the company, and then I'll get off my soapbox. Part of the thesis of the company is the cost curve has come down. So all of this stuff that was always a nice to have or only big companies could afford, it's available to mid-market, lower mid-market companies now in a way that it wasn't before. So something that was never it was not a burning issue. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can maybe afford this. And that opens up a whole bunch of use cases that weren't available to you. So I'm obviously I get kind of animated because I think this is really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And once you decided to build Paradox, you have a few options. You can either bootstrap, raise VC, or build it inside a venture studio. Why did you pick the third option?
Yeah, so there's a number of reasons I chose to partner with Infinity. And they're not really like a traditional venture studio, but I know like between those models, it's maybe closest to that, but a little bit different. In short, I just am not in a position to bootstrap it. I think it would take too long to do that. And I got a wife and kids. I live in Brooklyn. I need health insurance, I need, so I wasn't going to bootstrap it. And certainly not to, because I want to move fast, right? Like this is the time to strike. I don't want to be doing this for a decade. I want to kind of take advantage of the time. So bootstrapping would just take too long. Raising venture funding, that sounds terrible to me.
Yeah, that's what I want to say.
I think some people are great at it. I don't know if I would be. I've never done it before. I think I could be okay at it, but that's not a game I want to play. So this was a really nice, I get a salary. I like all the people at Infinity. Like, they're great. They're like, so many of them are former founders, CEOs. Like, they felt what I'm going through, and that was important for me. I mean, the model's really great. You can find them online, but they have a huge list of advisors and investors that they're, kind of do the warm intros. There's shared services, so I don't have to worry about like the legal stuff and the accounting stuff and some of the HR stuff I don't have to think about. And obviously they're funding me, so I can move faster. I've hired a team. Like, we do a lot of marketing, so we're building a platform. So all this stuff, and yeah, I had to give up a bunch of equity, but part of the experience is the journey. It's building a meaningful company, and this was kind of a way that made sense for me in my context.
What did you think you gained the most from partnering with a venture studio?
Yeah, so I honestly, I gained the ability to do the thing that I want to do, which is build this company.
And speed as well.
Yeah. So all of it. So like the money, the speed, the advisory, the safety net, kind of the 0 to 1. Like, they get you, part of the appeals, they get you 0 to 1 like really fast. So all, like, the sum of all of it. People are nice. Like, I like working with people I like. I mean, that's, I'm at the age in which, life's too short to work with assholes. So
Yeah.
sorry if I can't say that. With people I don't like, so that's what I got. I mean, it's a little bit of a no-brainer, to be honest.
That's an interesting choice. So what type of founders do you think suit a venture studio?
Yeah, again, I just speaking from my own experience, and you could ask Infinity, and they will have a different answer, and you ask a different, AI services company, and they'll have a different answer. But I think it is folks who want to be part of a team, who don't necessarily want to be solo, who are okay giving up a bunch of equity and kind of like governance control of your business. And by give up, like, technically, yes, you're giving it up, but you are partnering. So there's a very collaborative environment. So that's, and if that doesn't sound good to you, then, maybe give it a go to raise external funding. I know, like, there are other founders who are not interested in spending their time kind of fundraising.
Next time.
If that describes you, then this is a great model for that.
Yeah, exactly. I think bootstrapping and fundraising takes a lot of time away, and also you can't go as fast. There's no like backup.
Yeah, exactly.
So about Paradox Machine, everyone chases enterprise because that's where the biggest contracts are. And yeah, deliberately going after the market where most people think is too small, too fragmented, and too hard to serve, the mid-market. What do you think other people are missing that you are seeing the opportunities?
Yeah, I don't know that they're missing it necessarily. They're just like the big companies, kind of like I said, like they, if you're a Palantir, you're a big Snowflake shop, you're, a massive consultancy, the margins and the size of a contract need to be good enough for you to, reach out to these organizations. And it makes sense, right? Like, when you're making so much money, when you have so much overhead, you can't solve these last mile problems, these like very edge cases for companies in which the total contract value might be 50K, 100K, 200K. I mean, that's peanuts. That said, for small organizations like me, I mean, that's great. I would love to get 50, 100 of these types of contracts and grow with those organizations. That's kind of the path of most companies when they're starting out, right? So, like, yes, I would love to get a bunch of enterprise contracts, but what makes sense for us is to go for kind of that lower mid market, and in particular, we're able to do that while maintaining our margins because, as I said before, like, AI has brought cost curve down. So, so I can do it in a way that makes my business successful, can do it in a way that makes kind of these mid-sized companies, it's affordable for them. So it really is a win-win. And it's this massive market opportunity that, again, like the big players, they could totally go after it. But I like, frankly, I just don't think that their services are going to be of high enough quality, because they're just going to spread themselves too thin across too many clients. Sometimes what you see, just kind of like what you're seeing with the Anthropic and OpenAI push to do the forward deployed motion that they're doing. That's cool. They're very good at what they do. I think they're going to be underestimating the complexities of professional services, and also the organizations that they're partnering with, Goldman, Blackstone, like really great organizations with like the best people for sure. But they also want their margin, right? There's only so much margin that there is to go around. So when everybody's starting to take a piece of the margin, they're just, and then they start realizing that like, oh, the clients want this, and then this changed, and then so-and-so went on vacation, and that extends your timelines. And like, there's all these like random things that come up that, again, maybe Fortune 50 companies can afford, and they could just say, here you go, here's a bunch of money. But I think when you get to the mid-market, they're like, no, we just don't have budget. So I'm like so not concerned. Like I love that these organizations are making forward deployed professional services sexy again. Like that's great. I'm going to ride those coattails. And I know that the mid-market is just not going to get in any meaningful or durable way beyond headlines or like a partnership on LinkedIn. I just don't see it happening long term, which is great for me, because yeah, I want to land, I want to expand, I want to grow with these companies. And frankly, I want to democratize, like this is going to sound cheesy. And again, I'll get off my soapbox, but I want to democratize AI and data for these companies that like find it inaccessible. They don't know where to start,
So do you think these companies know where can they find this, or even where to start sourcing for it?
Where to find like help?
Yeah, for these kind of services and data, or
Yeah,
they don't know it exists yet.
Yeah, they can go to paradoxmachines.com.
Huh?
They can send me an email, Ilan at Paradox. No, I mean, do they know where to find it? I think it's harder than ever because there's so much noise.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, especially if you're outside of tech, I mean, even if you're in tech, they're scared. They're nervous about what AI is going to do. A lot of them are afraid it's going to take their jobs. I think it will for some people, for better or for worse. And, and a lot of them think that, oh, hey, I'm like chatting with ChatGPT, or I automated an email, so I'm using AI. And it's like, okay, step one, this is a multi-step process. So there's a lot of noise out there, and that's part of the challenge. I mean, one of the interesting things with AI is that it's shed light on data, right? So like data used to be kind of in the background in some way. It kind of still is, but it used to be in the background so much that people didn't bother with them. They didn't care about it. Data as a BI dashboard was like kind of the thing. And now people are thinking, well, I have data here, and AI needs context. And what does that mean? And how come this AI is not working? It's like, oh, because it doesn't have access to your data. How do I even give it access? What does that mean? What is MCP? Like there's all this stuff in our vernacular, and it's so noisy, and there's so much snake oil being sold. And, so my heart goes out to these small and kind of mid-sized companies who are just trying to figure it out and not get swindled. Like nobody wants to be first and be on the bleeding edge of like the next model deployment, in the mid-market, but they also don't want to be left behind. So they're really kind of stuck. So I'm hoping that they listen to this. They go to paradoxmachines.com. They drop me a note, and we can have a chat.
So how do you think you will reach these people? Do they need educational stuff to understand what is going on before making a choice? Or do they already know what is going on? They just have to make the choice of who.
Yeah, I think it's not even who, it's like what. So there's a ton of education that needs to happen. I mean, so I sell like a data and AI infrastructure kind of organization. Like that's, people are like, what are you even talking about? Data lake, pipelines? Like this is crazy town. So obviously I don't open with that. So there's a lot of education that needs to happen, but you can't like teach somebody data and AI 101 on a 30-minute call and then be like, and here's what you got to do. So the sales cycle is like very long, because there's a lot of conversations you have. You kind of plant some seeds, and then you help them out, and then you send them something, and then you don't hear from them for 3 months, and then they reach out to you because they're like, oh, I read this thing that you mentioned. And so I don't think you can rush this stuff. I think that's a great way to like burn a relationship. So at least my philosophy, and take it for what it's worth, is you kind of have to meet people where they are, and you can't shove your product, and you can't shove your theory of the world or theory of like data and AI down somebody's throat. You really have to kind of like bring them along. And that takes time. And sometimes try as I might, speaking for myself, I can't get people to understand. And like, that's my challenge. That's like, the battle that I have to try to win is not convince people of a thing or teach them a thing, but figure out how I can communicate what I believe to be true about the world to somebody else and do that effectively.
So most AI founders are selling to operators by selling Paradox into PE firms and family offices. Why did you choose this ideal client persona that is the hardest to convince?
Yeah, well, so yeah, they might be it's funny. I didn't think that they'd be the hardest to convince, but PE folks and family office folks are proving very challenging. But I'm up for that. No, so our ICP actually is private equity and family office. It's also founders and CTOs who are kind of struggling with their data, and a couple other profiles. But private equity is very interesting for me because they have this interest. And for a lot of firms, by the way, there's a lot of people who are doing the PE play, but they struggle with, they buy companies. These companies have all kinds of random ERP systems and CRMs and legacy systems and on-prem stuff. Like they're buying the like hardest type of organization to work with, right? Like not tech-enabled stuff. That's part of the, depending on the thesis of the company, but part of the thesis is, hey, we're gonna sprinkle technology, sprinkle software, and then we're gonna kind of roll you up and sell you in 3 to 5 years for some multiple. And it's a reasonable kind of on paper. I think the devil's in the details, and you can't just like, that's very hard to do. But I'm not going to tell them how they do their business. But as a result, their portfolio is made up of these mid-market companies who don't know about data and AI, lots of low-hanging fruit to be fair, and there's scale opportunities because they have a portfolio. So you can think about aggregating systems and data, creating a platform for companies to onboard onto, enabling these companies with data and AI, not every single one is going to be custom. You can kind of have a standardized playbook. So it's not a new phenomenon. PE firms do this a lot with service providers. They partner with organizations because they understand this opportunity. I think, again, it's hard to do because then you're working with the PE fund and you're working with the management teams at the portfolio companies. So it's very nice on paper, much harder to do in real life. That said, the opportunity is absolutely there. And for those PE firms that are more forward thinking and understand like, hey, I want to create compounding value. And I understand that data and AI is kind of where everything's going. And both, as I was saying earlier on, I need the data and the shape of the business to make sense. And I need the story to be compelling. So I think some of them are, let's get the data and AI in a good place. Now let's update the story, which is, by the way, legitimate and genuine. We are enabling our companies with data and AI. And that story and the actual kind of business itself, I think that's going to lead to kind of those higher multiples, like we were talking before about those data rooms doing it not at exit, but three years before exit. So that's kind of why I'm interested in these firms. And lastly, I'd say there's something very something nice about private equity and kind of like financial services in general. They're focused on the numbers, like, right? Like finance is like the canonical, the like foundational data customer, kind of the first one, at least traditionally speaking, because they just care about the numbers. The numbers in the spreadsheet, and they want it to go up. And that's like, numbers are data, right? So like they trade in data in some way that is refreshing. So So my analytical brain likes that. It's like, okay, here's the KPI, here's the duration of timeline, here's the duration of the project, here's the budget, and we're going to try to move this up to here, and that's going to be the ROI on the like. It's very cut and dry. It's not touchy feely, which rubs some people the wrong way, but I kind of like it because it's just like it's transactional. I get it.
So like what you say, private equity don't usually care about how the number moves, only that it moves.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like kind of a snarky, pithy kind of way of saying it, but like, yes, that's their business. Their business is to return, is to return to their investors some multiple on their original investment. Like that's the job. I'm sure if they wanted to like enjoy the work and like make friends and do like that's good too, but like these people are here to make money for their shareholders. Like I get it. As a result, their interest is like in making sure that the company is worth more when they sell than when they bought it, like a lot more. How to get there? I'm sure they hear pitches from different vendors in different domains all the time. So when they hear a pitch from a data vendor to say, hey, shore up your data and AI, and it's going to make them more, it's like, nobody said no. Nobody's like, that's crazy. They're like, sure, that sounds great. Now what? Like, go make me money. Go talk to the management team and like convince them, right? So as I was saying, like some PE firms understand, like they've done the math and they're like, that's right. If I get my data and AI in a good place, I can then position it in this way and make more money. Great. I'm going to push you down to my portfolio companies. Maybe we'll do a pilot and then we do this. Other firms are like, this sounds good. I don't know what to do with this information. I'm really focused on just making more money. So there's a bit of an education there, right? So just because they're after making more money, which by the way is like what we're like a lot of us are after, I don't hold that against them. It's just that sometimes they are so laser, like I have found in my conversation, they're so laser focused that that like, oh, it's almost like the blinders are on. They're like, is what you're saying making me money? If not, like I don't have time for conversation. So I was like, okay, that's fair. That's a me problem. I have to work on my positioning. If you don't see the value immediately, then okay, I'll take that back. That's kind of good feedback.
I think it's a general mindset in finance because finance is about money and making more money with the money you have. Mm-hmm. So how did you actually convince investors or PE firms to focus on the outcomes and to care about data, foundations, and AI when their focus is on making more money?
Yeah, so I've stopped trying to, as we were saying before about like education. I'm not in the business of convincing people of things. Like I think that's a tricky place to be, and I'm sure there are some folks who make a good living convincing others of stuff. I'm more trying to be, for folks who are interested and curious about data and AI and have ideas or questions, I like those types of conversations. So I'll, so at that point, the game is how do I position data and AI in a way that aligns with their goals? Not to convince them, hey, hire me because data is going to make you money, but more, hey, you have an idea about how data could help your company. Let's explore that. Let's talk about it. And I'll be real with you. Like some companies don't have enough data, or they don't have the management discipline, or they don't have the buy-in, or they think like with 15K they can transform their company, or they think if they just buy this one tool, that's going to solve the problem. I'm like, no, big no. To use data actually to transform your organization is possible, but it requires a big investment, not just like, and not necessarily a big money investment, a time, a commitment, a belief that this is the way to go. And at that point, people are like, that's too much for me. I don't want to do it. That's totally real. I don't want to sell you a bag of goods, so let's not do this. There are others who are like, I get it. This is going to be a big investment. Let's take it, 1 month at a time. And if it's not working, we'll pull the plug. And I'm like, great. That's how all these projects should go. We should iterate our way through it. We'll show you the quick wins so that you see that there's value like immediately, while also building a longer term foundation, the value of which you're only going to see in a couple of years, but like you can start imagining the utility. We want to avoid the big reveal. nobody wants a big reveal.
I believe it's also because you come from a data background and not from a sales or marketing background.
How could you tell?
Yeah, I think it's just a different perspective on how you approach the business. Do you think this will become your advantage compared to being a sales background founder?
I mean, that's a great question, and it's one that I think about a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know, and I know for sure. I'm convinced there's a lot for me to learn um, from sales leaders and marketing leaders, and some of these other folks of whose background I don't share. I also know that it'd be very disingenuous of me to try to like put on a sales hat. And again, I'm saying sales and like I do sales for a living, by the way. It's like as a CEO, but somebody from a traditionally sales background, I would love to learn from these folks, but it would also be silly of me to be like, now I'm gonna do like the classic sales playbook and be like, whatever I do has to be so genuine to me for it to kind of come across as real. And so is that a competitive advantage? I mean, certainly selling what I sell, which is kind of a data and AI infrastructure. I mean, if
Yeah.
you don't understand the technology, like good luck. I don't know. People, I like to think people will see through you really quickly. One of the advantages I have is I don't have to have a sales engineer with me on a call. We have amazing engineers, and I definitely tap into them whenever it kind of exceeds my comfortable knowledge. But luckily, most of the time, especially with business leaders, I am perfectly capable. So I think that gives me a leg up. That said, as we scale, I'm going to absolutely hire sales leaders, like technical sales leaders, and I would love for them to complement my skills, where they can go and knock on doors and kind of like do their thing, and I just kind of want to watch them and be like, "What are you doing? How do you do that? You're so good at like X, whatever X is. Can you teach me?" Like I have so much to learn. I'm very excited about it, but I also don't want to pretend that I'm something I'm not.
So you just started sales and selling to people in this company, right? In this new position. Before that, you have never sold or never worked in sales before.
Well, okay, so that's not exactly true. Like, so as a consultant, you sell.
Mm-hmm.
I was solo selling. It doesn't feel like selling because I'm just like talking to data about people who need with people who need data help. So I don't know, kind of easy, or natural rather. But then at Brooklyn Data, where I spent many years, that was kind of like this role. Like I was selling, right? I was like leading a big team, leading a number of client engagements. We didn't really have a sales team. Like we no, that's not true. We had some sales folks, but there's only like a handful of people, the founder, myself, and maybe a couple others, who could sell into the enterprise, who could sell data stuff. So and my first few conversations were so bad. I mean, I was actually having dinner the other day with my first or second client, and I just remember some of my first conversations with them, and I was like, in my head, I'm like, I'm sorry you had to go through that. Like, thank you for working with us anyway, like despite whatever nonsense I was talking about, because it was terrible. I'm glad for that, because I think that shows growth on my part. But I'm sure in 5 years, I'll look back at some of these conversations and say, what the hell was I talking about? Why was I saying that? My inner monologue saying, shut up, shut up, shut up, stop talking. But so I have been selling for kind of a number of years. And then more broadly, not in this sense, like we're all kind of selling, right? I'm selling a project to my team when I'm leading a team. I'm selling a budget and an initiative to my leaders when I'm trying to get budget for a thing. When you're interviewing, you're selling yourself. So you're kind of always selling in some way or form or another. Yeah, that's all I'll say about that. I mean, we can talk a lot about sales.
Yeah, but so back to the part where you said you think that your first few sales conversations are really bad. Like, do you think so, or do your clients think so as well? I'm sure they don't think so. If not, they wouldn't have signed, right?
Yeah, no, I don't know. Sometimes I think they do things despite me. I mean, at Brooklyn Data, I have to say, like we were selling what's the expression? Kind of ice cream in a desert. You know, like everybody wanted data, everybody wanted DBT and analytics and Snowflake, and there were just not that many people around and, you know, shops around that could do it. So I think it was much easier as well because it was all inbound early on, at least what I saw. I'm sure kind of the founder did some outbound. So that changes the narrative as well. Like right now I'm doing a lot of outbound. I do some inbound as well. And the inbound is an easy, much, you're not selling. You're kind of explaining what you do. Like they know what they want in some way. I mean, they think they do.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas outbound, you're doing the education, the convincing, the like planting seeds. Like that's a whole different game. So in a sense, I was doing a lot of inbound, and then I had to start doing a lot of outbound, and that's why it feels different to me in some way. But when the light bulb goes off in a customer's head, a prospect's head, and they're like, "Oh, I get it," and then it becomes more of an inbound. So now you're like, "Cool, now let me," instead of trying to convince you to work with me, it's like just like talk to you about data, like very casually. I think my early customers like me enough, you know,
Yeah.
that despite myself, they're like, okay, let's, you know, and I had a pretty good, you know, I had a pretty good like experience. Like I led data teams. I was a data scientist. Like they're like, okay, this guy's like, he might be weird on the phone selling me this stuff, but like he's a legit operator, and that I feel very confident in.
Do you believe that people rather you are awkward and genuine than being pushy, especially in the US?
It's interesting you phrase that. I never use the word awkward, but thank you.
Oh yeah, I thought you just say that.
No, yeah,
Yes,
no, I totally super awkward. I'm sure. Do they like awkward and genuine? I don't know. I think everybody likes genuine. You know, in my experience, I'm sure some people like I don't know. I can imagine somebody who's like doesn't care if you're genuine or not. Like totally, just a transaction, just the facts. But in professional services, you're not just selling. It's funny. People like talk about, and I get it, outcomes-based pricing. Like, yeah, and we talk about it as well. And I think that's a much better model than billable hours. But you're not selling the like, okay, I want the widget to do this thing at this time, and that's what I'm paying you for. And we're just like, it's spreadsheet math. It's like, we could do that, but then it's a race to the bottom, right? Then you're just like competing against the next person who can do that thing cheaper and faster, and then you're just trying to undercut your, like, I don't want to play that game. The game I'm playing is like relationships. It's, I'm going to be your easy button. I'm going to be here when things break. I'm going to be here when you have a question. I'm going to look around the corners for you. I don't know how you price that, but what I do know is that when you're genuine, to your point, maybe even awkward, but certainly genuine, then people are like, okay, like there's a couple of vendors I can go with, but Ilan makes me feel good and makes me feel safe and answers my questions. And also, by the way, is really good at data and AI, and I trust them. Is that genuine? I think so. I'm genuine in that. And so I think the customers who work with me see that too. I hope they do.
Yeah, I believe so. Do you think there's a difference selling to enterprises before and now selling to mid-market companies?
Yeah, huge difference. Enterprises are a whole other beast. You know, enterprises are like, they're massive. They have procurement teams. They have many different people who have to sign off on things. They have legacy operations. Forget about legacy systems. So like, this is how we do things here. They always have multiple vendors. So like, you're not the only one that they're working with. They're working with like a dozen others at the same time. They might be using you as an experiment. Like, let's just like, yeah, competitive intelligence. And it's not like a bad thing. Like, I don't mean to make it sound nefarious, but like, it's never as simple as, we would like your help to do X, which mid-market companies and enterprises, you know, on the one hand, they're like very sophisticated because they have all these systems and processes in place. On the other hand, they're very unsophisticated. And also like the leaders of enterprises are really impressive people, right? Like if you're VP, SVP, CXO of Fortune 500, like you're an impressive individual, you know, 9 times out of 10, let's say. At smaller organizations, oftentimes it's like somebody who started as a junior and then rose up the ranks over the last like 3 or 4 years, and they might be really good and impressive too, but they might not have 20, 30 years of experience somewhere. They might not have 6 different vendors. They might not have established processes, and they're looking to you to help them establish processes. So it's a very different conversation, both really interesting in my mind. And again, we can talk about enterprise and mid-market. I can do a whole like tech talk about the differences, at least in my experience. But yeah, it's massively different. I also like, I do think the genuine partnership is valuable to both. I think it's much more valuable to mid-market companies because you're kind of like their lifeline, whereas enterprise, they have a bunch of advisors. But what's like true about both in my experience is the relationships, right? So less than relationship with the company, but more with the humans, right? So who is on the other side of the call? They're a person. They might be a person at Fortune 50 or a person at a, you know, Series A company, obviously very different, but like they're humans and they're talking to you and they just want to like enjoy their work and, you know that things are, that you're going to make their life easy. So there are similarities despite massive differences.
I think making their life easy is definitely a huge win for anyone, any company, any person. People pay to have their problems solved.
Exactly. Like and this is something I tell, like, especially engineers or folks who are a little like, you know, earlier mid-career. They think that it's good to ask questions so that you could refine your solution. And that like obviously makes like, yes, ask questions so that you deliver the right thing. Like, of course, except like, don't do that in professional services. Like stop asking your, you know, the budget holder or your champion so many questions. Like they're busy. They hired you to not have to deal with you if that's right. So that's what makes it really hard and fun is you're working with ambiguity as a feature, not a bug. So yeah, like part of making their life easy is kind of disappearing a little bit, you know, not in a way where it's like you don't talk to them for 2 or 3 weeks because that's also bad kind of client management, but just being like, you know, FYI, this was done. No action needed. And like, here's the decision I made. Here are 3 recommendations. I'm going with option 1. Let me know by end of day if you disagree. You know what I mean? Like, do the thing. They hired you because you're good. Be good and do it. And also, if you screw up, you're going to screw up, and that sucks. And that's the name of the game. And they might fire you, you know, or they might not. But like, you can't be so risk averse. You can't be so like analytical and like, I have to get with the precise right thing, you know, in this kind of game.
Yeah, definitely. I think mid-market companies, if you are very direct to the point, sharp, and you don't waste their time so much, it makes a lot of sense for them to continue engaging with you. Because I feel a lot of them are just overwhelmed with too many things.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's, you know, again, like you're not selling a dashboard or a solution. You're selling peace of mind. You're selling trust. You're selling, you know, being the easy button, right? You know, I've said it before. And that's that I should give credit to former founder of Brooklyn Data for the easy button. He used to say that, and I copied it.
So you recently started being a founder, and your wife is also a founder. Do you find challenges in both a couple being a founder?
Yeah, there's challenges, just like there would be challenges if she weren't a founder. She, for context, started an upholstery business a few years ago. So she was first to this game than me, and she has a very successful business, kind of a pipeline through the end of the year. You know, it's like she's doing great. But yeah, I mean, that's part of the infinity play, right? Like, we needed healthcare. We need, you know, a little bit more stability in our income. So yeah, I mean, like those are some, but those are all like fine challenges that you can overcome. I don't know, like we've had so many challenges. Again, like we got the kids. We just got a dog a couple weeks ago. You know, we have like family that we see. Like we have a very full life with all kinds of things happening, and at any given point in time, there's like too much, and it's overwhelming, and there's always a reason why something won't work, or it's like totally. That's one narrative. There's another narrative where you're supporting each other and you're going to make it work. And you're going to prioritize and you're going to say no to some things, which might suck. But also, life is long, and we're not trying to like win a race in the next quarter. Like this, we want to build a sustainable life that we can both grow our businesses in a way that makes sense. And when you have that type of a narrative, then you're just in solution mode. And when you're in solution mode, all of these things are solvable.
Yeah. And who is the first person that you go to whenever you need solution to a big decision, or you need to make a big decision and you need a second opinion? Like, did you ask your wife?
I definitely kind of consult her, mostly just to like talk to somebody about it, and then she just asks me questions, and then I like figure it out, and then we move on with our day. But no, I have advisors I have like friends who are successful and have run businesses or are running a business now, and I'm very liberal with my asking of them, and actually to a person they all advise and give me their 2 cents, and I take all these data points and I kind of like consolidate them into a decision. You also can't like overthink things too much. You have to just kind of make a decision and go. So yeah, luckily I've cultivated like a pretty good network, high quality friends, high quality kind of colleagues, and I leverage them, and as I hope, and as they leverage me.
So, what is one advice you will give to other entrepreneurial couples? Because of the highs and lows, how do you guys manage it smoothly and positively?
And positively is an important.
She's gonna watch this.
Yeah. No secrets. I think it kind of goes back in my mind to what I was saying before about like the story that you tell yourselves. And I'm definitely guilty of having told a story that's, I'm stressed out about this, and I also can't, exercise today, which is like good for my own mental health. And I have a trip coming up, and the kids didn't sleep. Like, that's a story. It's a legitimate one. It's like factually true. It's also not like productive or helpful. And sometimes it's good to vent. But eventually you need to like move on with your day, and you need to like do the thing and like solve it. So I think ultimately it's about storytelling, and if you can tell each other, it's not like positive stories like everything's going to be fine all the time, and sometimes things suck, but like it's fine. Sometimes things suck and we move on. We don't need to, I'm a big fan of kind of like Stoic philosophy, and one of the tenets is around separating yourself from the thing. So there's a thing that existed or that happened, and there's how I feel about that thing, and I can't control the thing, but I can control how I feel. It's like a thing, so I can control how I feel about it. So like I would say, acknowledge the challenges. They live here in this compartment, and in this compartment lives the solution. And maybe there's multiple solutions, and now we're going to work together to like open the right compartment that solves the challenge that's over here. And then we have to, and then we move on, right? So that is how I try to approach personal life, professional life, all that.
So problem solving mode.
Yeah. Problem solving, like together, absolutely together. Like you're not on an island. You got to be in sync. Every now and then you'll be out of sync. Check in. We have a bunch of rituals ourselves, like date nights and like weekly kind of family meetings, and like all kinds of rituals. That's just like the way that my brain works. Is like I need schedules, and I need it to be like reminders and stuff. And we have all that. And yeah, we have I don't know, we have a pretty good functioning family life and professional life. I don't know. But like we're we're doing our best here.
Yeah, that's great. Because someone told me before that a husband and wife is kind of like a co-founder of a home. You're co-founding a house, so you're also building something together, but in a different way.
Yeah, co-founding a home, like, I don't love that narrative, but it's totally like a thing. Even though I like to think of us more as like a married couple that loves each other, not co-founders of like a company called our home. Yeah.
Oh, that's romantic.
Well,
Okay.
that's important.
Yeah, that as well. So I have one last question for today. If there's another founder, or no, not another founder, if there's another person similar to your background, that wants to start a company after a certain age with a family, what advice would you give him or her?
Yeah. So, subject to your own personal circumstances, I don't know where you come from, what you're capable of, your network, like putting all that aside, all else equal, just do it. It's such an interesting experience. You learn a ton. You meet so many people. It might fail, and then you'll just be back to where you were 6 months, 12 months before. Life is long. I wish I did this 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I think I would have been so much less successful, but I would have learned a ton and then like have done it again and then been better for it, I think. So there's all kinds of like tips and tricks and advice and challenges. That's a podcast for another session. But the one thing I would say is like, don't overthink it, do it, have fun, learn a ton. Life's long.
Just do it. If not, you will regret. Better do it than to regret. Oh, what's the saying about it?
You've heard this from like much more profound and prolific people than myself, but like nobody's regretted doing the thing. They've only regretted not doing the thing.
I was gonna say that. Yeah, I heard of it somewhere else. All right. So thanks, Ian, for coming on the Utopia Decision Room podcast today. It was nice having you and listening to you. We hope to bring you back for the next one.
Sure. Yeah, this was super fun, Gina. And would love to do this again sometime.
Yeah, for sure.